Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre. This is a tutorial on how to make this lovely tiger lily card that I am doing with Globeland. These are beautiful Globeland stamps that are very crisp and clear and precise. And so you're going to love using them. So join me in this tutorial and let's make this together. Okay, so this is my original composition I had planned for the card, and that was using the original stamp the way it is, and then adding the second flower as a pop-up. And I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me, but I also wanted to show you how I looked for different backgrounds for the card, the neon green as well as the neon orange. And I thought that the neon orange brought out the flower, the tiger lily color better. So originally I went with this because I thought it brought out the green. And I'm going, well, you know, the flowers are the more important part. So I figured in my final composition, I might as well reuse these since I've painted them already, but I will describe to you how I painted them. And then the top flower, I'll show you how I'll demonstrate the painting. Okay, and so what you're going to need to do is, you know, you can, of course, choose your own cardstock for your card, but this is just basically a half of 11 by 8.5 sheet of cardstock cut in half, and when it's folded, then it makes 4 1/4 by 5.5 card. And so cutting the 11-inch length in half is 5.5 inches. And so this is 5.5, well, yeah, 5.5 that way by 8.5 this way. So, and then it goes to 4, when you fold it, it's 4 1/4 then instead of 8.5. Okay, so you're gonna need that. I don't think I wrote down what I have here, so I'm gonna quickly measure that. This is what the flower is going on. So this is 4 1/4 inches tall, and I believe it's 3 inches wide. And I wanted to make it as small as possible so we're not getting washed out with too much white. And that's why I picked that. And it's like, yeah, just the bare minimum. And you're also going to need your acrylic block, which I'll have the link. This is Globeland's blocks. You might have your own, but they do sell a set of 3 that I chose. And I'm going to use the largest one because that one stamp is pretty big. And I figured I'll just use the same block for all of them. And then I'm using Rogers Archival Acid-Free Permanent Waterproof Sepia. And I'm doing this, I'm trying to demonstrate to you that you don't need a bunch of inks. Some people think they need to collect all the colors of the inks. You don't. Just, I like sepia because it gives it not too harsh a look. You can paint, and it can also give it an antique look. It doesn't show, it looks more natural with this. It's actually perfect for the stamen because they are brown, and in real life they usually are brown with a little bit of color. You could add more color or just leave it as is. And then I'm using water-soluble colored pencils. Now, you don't have to have the same brand I have. You could have whatever brand. I got these ones just off of Amazon. So if you're interested in getting some, if you don't have some, if you want the link to Amazon, well, I got these in Canada, so whether you're in Canada or not, you could Google water soluble pencils and possibly find them there, as well as I have pop-up double-sided foam things. These ones are just bought at Walmart. I know some dollar stores have them. It doesn't have to be picky. You're going to need a glue runner or rubber cement or whatever you use for gluing your paper down. I don't recommend liquid glue because it tends to curl the paper. And you're going to need a paintbrush. I'm using a paintbrush that has the water in the handle. And so as long as you're comfortable with using one, that's good. And a pencil. We're going to need a pencil for doing some measuring and some light marking of where we're going to stamp. And of course, you're going to need a scissor and your ruler, if I haven't mentioned that already. I think that's all the supplies that you're going to need. For cleaning your stamps, they will get ink on it because it's permanent. And you know what, when they have ink on it and you're trying to stamp, it makes it easier to see exactly where the stamp's going. So it's almost a good thing. But to wash them after you use your stamps, you should always wash them anyways. Just like dish soap and water and rinse it really well, and then let them air dry. And then I forgot to mention the stamps. Now these are Globeland, of course. So are the acrylic blocks. So is, yeah, okay, just the acrylic blocks and the stamps in this tutorial are for them. See, you can see that I've used it with the permanent ink. And then when you take it off, I really like this. They've got a memory of where it was, so that if you lose track of your stamps, you have an archival memory there for you. Okay, so there's the stamp. That's all it takes to put it on. And this is a really big stamp, so it's, you know, I have to put it diagonally on this one, but I can see exactly where it's at because the ink that was on it. The first time I did it, I didn't have that. It wasn't as easy to see, but I like that. So just so you know, it is going to get ink on it. If you're using permanent ink, it does not wash off. So anyways, from there, oh, I also wanted to go over, for keeping your stamps together, keep the plastic that it comes between. It has the one with the picture on it, so you put it there, and then it has a thinner layer. This is thick, heavier, and then a thinner layer to put it like that, and that protects it, and it comes in a nice Ziploc bag. And then you just store it in there. And then if you want, you can keep them in a binder or a ring. A binder, you could just put 2 hole punches in it and stick it in a binder. And then you can flip through your stamp collection. It takes up less room than the wooden stamps for sure. So that's bonus features of these. And let's see, I think that's everything that you need. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is, I've chosen to use my orange. I'm going to just get that ready. So what I do, and it makes a nicer folded card, is I wish I could back off just a little bit, but the paper itself tells you which way to fold it. When you hold it like this in the middle, or like this, it will be giving one way more than the other. It'll start bending down. And see this one? This way, it's being stiff as a board. And this way, it's giving way just slightly. You can feel it in your fingers. That's the way you should fold it. And then this is, I believe, 65 or 67 pound cardstock. You don't want to get really heavier stuff, because then the paper tends to crack on you when you fold it. And you match up the corners very carefully. And some people use a bone folder for this part. I don't have a bone folder at this time, and maybe I will get one in a future order, and then that just, you know, creases it. But my finger is doing well. I could also use my paintbrush like this because it's clear. It's not going to leave any marks. And there, it's called a bone folder, but most of them are made out of plastic these days. Okay, so that's the first thing. And you need to cut your 4 1/4 by 3 inch piece of white cardstock. You're also going to need some extra white cardstock to do the stamping of these 2 stamps. So you could do that ahead of time if you wanted. And now I'm just going to put some scrap paper I gotta grab some. Ah, here we go. I have some scrap paper here that I practice stamping on. I want to just, in case I goof up, and I'm going to take the stamp I want out and have it prepped. Okay, this is the one I want on this sheet. That's the only one that's going to be stamped on the paper that's being glued to the card. Okay, and the other ones are going to be put with foam dots. And what I want to do now is I want to measure approximately center, and we want to go about 1/4 of an inch down when we do that, because we want it to be kind of like painted over. And one right here, and I'm going to do it lightly so I can just barely see that mark. And I don't even know if you can see it. Maybe I need it a little bit darker. Okay, and I'm just going to put this on here, and I'm going to ink it up. And just so you know that Rogers inks do not snap shut, so I always put an elastic band around it when I'm storing it to keep it closed and to keep the ink from drying out as much as possible. Okay, so I got it inked up, and now I want to get, you see where that leaf is? I want the center mark to be just near the tip. And it's hot, my camera's in my way, so I can't really see. I usually put my head right above it. Guessing it's about there. And ink it down, push firmly. And there it is. Okay, so that's what I wanted. And see how crisp that printed, that stamped? Isn't that beautiful? See, these stamps are kind of so crisp. It's beautiful. And now I'm going to take that, well, I'm going to put that aside and wash it later, or you could stop and wash it now. I'm not worried about the ink staining on mine because I like it, but you might be bothered by that. Now I'm going to take out my pencils, and these pencils you can't get them out one at a time, so you have to take them all out in order to get at them. And I'm going to be using my 2 colors of green and my red and my orange. Okay, and I think I used the blue a tiny bit. No, I didn't. Okay, got the 2 greens. There we go. That's what I need. You could use yellow too to augment the flowers even more, but you keep it simple. And what I'm doing is I am outlining with the red. Now you're pressing lightly. You don't want to press hard because then it locks in that spot. So it's kind of like coloring in a way, but I'm doing the inside of the flower. You don't want to go out of the lines, just like coloring. And in here, I'm going to color the red there so that the red, we want multi-layers of paint, of color, so it gives kind of like a depth of field effect. And this is what I did with the other flowers too. So you don't really need to see me do all of them. Wherever you think the flower is darker is where you're going to put the red. Remember, if you're not happy with the first one you do, you can always just make another one. Okay, so that's all the red I'm going to use on this flower. And now I'm going to use some orange. I'm just lightly coloring. It's faster. Outlining takes longer. And if you really wanted to, you could take some yellow and put it in a little bit in the center there. It just will make it a little bit orangier. Not much. There. And now I'm going to paint. I'm going to wet that now, and because I want it to kind of dry before I do the green. So with this type of paintbrush, I'm actually having to squeeze the water, and then I go like this until I feel, and you can actually see the water on my hand now. Then you know you have it wet, because you don't want to do the squeezing as you're painting. And you want to, again, stay in the lines, and you're blending the colors together. And see how it's giving that nice effect? And it's really so simple to do. Okay, it's drying out. So again, I'm going to do it on my hand. And why you need permanent ink to do the flowers, to do your stamping, is because you don't want that ink to move when it gets wet. The regular ink will move and it'll just make a mess. So see how crisp that's staying? And it's beautiful. There. Okay, so it's not very wet. It should dry really fast. I'm just going to rub that off on my hand to get any paint that's on it off. And now I'm going to take the two greens, and if you wanted to, you could use yellow again to lighten it up. But I'm going to do basically the same type of effect. I'm going to do outline with the dark green. Okay, and then I'm going to fill it in with this lighter green. And I'm going to actually use a little bit of yellow in the odd one. I'll take my paintbrush and do the same process again. Okay, I think I got everything. Okay, so that's colored. Okay, so the next step is to do the other two stamps. So you're going to do that on scrap paper. And I did the flowers in the exact same way. I'm going to be cutting this part off because I don't like it. I'm going to remove this and do this flower by itself. And I'm just going to... There. Okay. So how I painted the vase was I took my purple color. That's the one I didn't mention. I'm taking the purple color and I just outlined the vase and then I did it on each of the lines. And then when I painted it, I blended it, but it stayed darker near the lines and it gave it some depth because this is a textured vase and it gives that textured look to it. So it's actually quite simple to do. I just went along the lines with this right so that it did a little bit of color on each side of it, really, and then just washed it. And then the flowers were done the exact same way that I just showed you on this one. And then the next thing you're going to do with this one is you cut it precisely around the flower, except for around the stamen. You're going to leave the paper showing. So that's why when I did this one, I put it here so that it was paper against paper, and then you didn't notice that for the pop-up. But I will be placing it differently in this one. So now what I want you to do is, and I'm going to do this off camera, very carefully cut around, if you wanted to, because this doesn't really show what flower it's to. You could cut those off or leave them on. That's up to you. I think I'm going to leave mine on just because it fills that void, and the imagination will let you know where it's supposed to go. And then I'm just cutting it around. There's no stamen to cut around. And then I'm cutting around here. So I want that piece and around there. And then I'm lopping that off because I really don't like that. And then I'm cutting around there carefully. Okay. My original plan was to do a frame here. I even actually showed you. I was going to do a frame that's cut out, which is very difficult to do, and I was going to give it a 3D effect with the vase coming out the bottom. And then I'm going, you know, that's really difficult. Not a lot of people will want to do that type of thing. So that's why well, for multiple reasons, I changed my plan. So I'm going to cut this out now, and I will be right back after it's cut. Okay, so I'm back and I have that cut out. Now, just so you know, because it's white background here, if you're not exactly up close there, it's not going to really matter as well as here. But this part was the most difficult. I still have a little bit of white left there, as you can see, but it's actually quite forgiving. If you wanted to take an X-Acto knife and cut that out, by all means. I did it with a scissor, and we're not going to glue it down. I just wanted to position just so you see what this is going to be popped up. And then this is, I'm going to put one pop-up just under the stamen there. So it's going to actually sit at an angle. So it's going to be underneath here, but then up. So it's going to have more 3D effect. And that is my intentions of what it's going to look like. Okay, but we're going to glue it onto the card before we add the pop-ups on it. And so you're going to need your glue runner. And I usually do along each edge. And an X in the middle. And I usually eyeball where this is going to go to be centered. And so I usually find the middle between the top and the bottom and see what the distance is. And it's easier. It's easier when I don't have the camera in my way. No, it's really sticking. Okay, so I'm going to actually move it out of the camera view so I can see better. There. Okay. It's probably not perfect, but there's where it's at. And now I'm going to get my pop-ups. Okay. And I'm going to do the big piece first. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put a dot there, 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 one in the middle and one in the bottom. Are tough to get out at times. Just do the best you can. So I'm going to put one here. Here. I might put two there. Okay, and now I'm going to peel off the other stickies. Now these are quite repositionable. Not all sticky, not all pop-ups are. I really kind of like these ones. And I want to center the vase, and I want it equidistant from the bottom that this is from the top. And make sure it's going upright. But if I don't get it perfect, I know that this will come off fairly easy. Okay, there it is. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to put one pop-up on this flower. They're called Pop Dot adhesives by Forever in Time. I got those ones at Walmart. I'm going to put it under the stamen. And then I want to see where I want that. Probably about there. Okay, and there it's got its 3D effect. Gives it a bit of a magical look. And I'm going to pull this back. And there it is. All done. It's fairly simple to do. The painting was fun. I love the fact that you could only need one ink color, and then your pencils, those aren't expensive pencils. You can get really expensive ones, but I mean, you don't, there are some really cheap ones that don't work well, but you know, you just be careful with them and they'll work for you. Okay, so that's what I've done with this Tiger Lily stamp set, and I like the way it turned out, and I hope you do too. Thank you for joining me in this tutorial with Globeland, and I will have all the Globeland links to the product in the description, so check that out. I'll have the measurements for the paper in the description. If you want links to anything else that I have used in this video, I'm not promoting it on this video, but I can get the links to you of where I got it on Amazon. And yeah, that's all that's to it. Thank you again. Bye for now. God bless.